Even though the Torah begins with the story of creation, there is an I-we proposition that God stitches into the message even in chapter 1. In the first 2 chapters, God leads us towards the cosmos' ultimate completion. Not that there's an entire finishing the job, but the completion and the pinnacle of the pursuit is the creation of the human being and the creation of human families of the earth. There's an I-we proposition, really a cosmic we towards an I direction. We're first made part of the cosmos. We are part of the larger creation. We're part of the grand plan of the universe. And then slowly, step by step, when all is put into order by the divine creator, human beings are fashioned, formed, shaped, and designed by God, who grants us free will, implants within us curiosity, and enabled Adam and Chava, the first parents of our era of sentient human beings, the kind of free will that will determine ultimately their destiny. And that is to be sent out of the pristine garden, meaning they're given free choice and they're asked to accept the consequences of their own decisions as it pertains to both themselves individually and the greater we of humanity. Situating ourselves as part of the great cosmos, as elemental parts and important and central components of the grand plan of cosmic eternity, we are and can sense holy and holiness. The rabbis, in canonizing the story of creation, in including Parashat Bereshit, right after we read Parashat V'zot HaBracha, finishing the book of Deuteronomy as we did on Simchat Torah, and starting anew this week on Shabbat to read the book of Genesis, they suggest that the entirety of the Torah, though it is about, in the case of that last message of Deuteronomy, Moses speaking to the children of Israel and describing what life could be like if they embraced the heritage that God promised them, that we turn right back to situate ourselves in the grand scheme of creation, the grand scale of the universe, the incredible expanse of the cosmos. And so it is, again, I-we. And we see ourselves as an I, not only as individual human beings, but we see ourselves as Am Yisrael, as I, as the one people among many peoples who make up the families of the earth. The rabbis explain that Am Yisrael has a unique mission in the world. And mission-based living through mitzvot, encapsulated in a covenantal existence, described in the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments and beyond, the moment at Mount Sinai and the momentum it creates in life to be on the journey through a wilderness to inherit the one particular tract of land, Israel, for the Jewish people. That one particular story exists in the context of all the families of the earth. And of course, in this radiant reality of the Ein Sof, of the never-ending cosmos. And so creation sets forth a notion that we are part of something grand, that there is a greater we than us, and even greater than families of the earth, the space and universe and cosmic reality that is beyond even earth. And then there is the single set of parents who are the royal we. And then there is and are children and families of the earth. And that is an I among the we, the people Israel, Am Yisrael, seen as a singular entity among all those children who will fill the earth and multiply, as the story of Genesis tells it. And then, to drill down even further, the rabbis include on a normal Shabbat Bereshit, when it's not Machar Chodesh, sometimes when we read Parshat Bereshit, we read a special Haftarah called Machar Chodesh, which we will do this year, because Rosh Chodesh begins right after the Sabbath. But on a normal Shabbat Bereshit, when we read Genesis, the Torah portion, Genesis, we chant the Haftarah that comes from chapter 42 of Isaiah. And Isaiah wants Jewish people to know individually and as a collective, Am Yisrael, that God, like God is the Borei Ha'olam, the creator of the universe, God is the Borei Ha'am, the creator of the Jewish people, Yotzer Ha'adam, the designer of the individual human mind, body, spirit, every heart. And the 5th verse of chapter 42 begins the traditional Haftarah for this Shabbat. Ko Amar Hakel Hashem Borei Hashamayim V'notehem Roka Haaretz V'tze'etzaeha Notein Nishama La'am Aleha V'ruach Laholchim Ba. This first verse of the Haftarah, which is the 5th verse of chapter 42 of Isaiah, reads, "So says God, who is the Lord, who creates the heavens and stretches them out, who stretches out the land and its produce, who gives a soul to the people and a spirit to those who walk on it." Note that for every individual, one can find him or herself in this notion of Ruach Laholchim. God implanted a spirit into everyone with 2 feet, into everyone who walks the earth, physically, metaphorically. God implanted a Ruach. And we oftentimes talk about the word Ruach being connected to soul, but in this case it's differentiated from, even if parallel to, the word Neshama, which is soul. But it's not that God gave a soul to every individual who walks the earth. That was reserved for the way the prophet expressed having a ruach, having a spirit, a ruach, laholchim, a ruach to those who walk the earth. The soul, alternatively, is given to whom? Is given to the people Israel. Nishama la'am. There is an I-we proposition vis-a-vis one's consciousness. There is an I-we reality that is recognized by the prophet Isaiah, so that we consider ourselves created by God, inspired to embrace our destinies as individuals who walk upon the face of the earth, and as a people understand that there's a unique soul to the entity of Am Yisrael. Rav Soloveitchik explained this in an article concerning the Jewish people, the community of Israel, and explained that as an entity on earth, there is a sole existence of Am Yisrael, of the Jewish people, that is distinct and different, unique, versus the individual spark of holiness that describes a Jewish person's spirit. The second verse reinforces this idea of I-We, of an individual and one's own personal free choice and destiny, and yet how it's tied with a people, your people, our people, Am Yisrael Chai. What is the goal of Am Yisrael? What is the goal of the Jewish people in ultimately what will be the land of the Jewish people, Israel, and beyond land and natural boundaries, the kind of peoplehood that is a unique consciousness among the Jewish people who live outside of, above, distinct from what geophysical boundaries define families of the earth and nations? What is the goal of that people who stands as a people God breathed a unique spirit into per every individual who received that ruach? The goal is to be, in that famous expression, an or la goyim, a light unto nations. And as God created light in the creation story, the rabbis chose in this haftarah the expression of becoming light, being light unto the families of the earth. Some argue that this notion of being chosen by God to become this light seems egotistical or better than thou. But in fact, mission-based living, based in unique cultural expressions, values orientations, and commitments to mitzvot, make the Jewish people an Am with neshama, a people with soul, who take on that special mission because of a determination to bring more holiness and to bring more soulfulness and to bring more spirit and creative partnership into the world. When we study our Torah, when we keep and encourage a Shabbat rhythm with time for work and time for rest and family togetherness and kosher eating and discipline in the way that we live out our moral lives, we become what the prophet Isaiah insisted we become, with individual ruach, with individual spirit, and with a neshama of being together as a people, above and beyond geo-natural, geopolitical boundaries. We are a people who exist together around the world in order to serve God, who is the creator, who proposed that the world exists only when the eyes of the world, the peoples, the individual families of the world, the individuals within those families connect to the larger missions that we have, so that we become servants of the creator of the universe, in our case, through the covenant that we established on Sinai. The prophet goes on to say at the end of this week's haftarah that we become, as we often hear, not only Or LaGoyim, a light unto nations, but Avdi Asher Bacharti. God recognizes that you are my servant. God, in essence, thanks us for serving the higher purpose that was designed through the lessons imparted in Torah, the lessons that we will decipher as Am Yisrael, as students of the Torah and of the Talmud, and of the great covenantal responsibility that we take on. Avdi asher bacharti. We feel chosen for this unique mission, and we ascend to it. We make spiritual aliyah, if not physical aliyah these days, in order to live out our unique roles in the never-ending expanse of the cosmos that exists way beyond our time here on this earth. And so the story of creation inspires us to find our roles, to find our moments that we can shine, like the lights God sent to the heavens. And may we truly have in 5781, since we're still just off these days of awe, may we have blessings as we begin reading our Torah anew, to fill the world with a new light, to become enlightened by lessons of our past and investigations into our sacred libraries this year, and for soul searching as a people, and for bringing out unique spirit as individuals. May we find great strength through returning again and again to our Torah. Shabbat Shalom.